Coach Tony.
Okay, folks, we're back. It's Hey Coach Tony on ESPN Radio. By the way, during the break, I was informed that Mike is covering University of Miami today. So, Mike, if you're still listening, I just want to say thank you for sharing your time with us and dealing with our technical problems. But we have solved the phone lines. The phone lines are open at 855 Hey Coach. In fact, my brother John, we're gonna take another crack at my brother John. He wants to be on the radio this morning. So, hey, John, you're on Hey Coach Tony. What's going on this morning?
Good morning, Coach Tony.
You got that sound in your voice like, what the hell's wrong with you guys?
Good morning, Coach Tony. First of all, I'd like to thank Mike Bellantino. I thought he was very entertaining. I would have loved to have talked to him, but maybe get him back on the show another time. I think what you're talking about with these overbearing parents, there's two levels. You're talking about one at the pro level, which is, off the charts, entitlement type of, don't you know who I am, and as opposed to more of the children who, I think the parents somehow view themselves as better parents or better athletes because their son or daughter is a good baseball player or a good soccer player or anything like that. I'm just curious as to what do you think, like I heard what you said, do you think it's better for these overbearing parents not to be involved at all near the field with these kids, or a gradual backing away of and let them see what's going on the field and how much they're affecting their own children?
I think if you can illustrate the point, and it is a good point, John, and thankfully, none of us turned out to be the truly overbearing sports parents with all our kids. But the fact of the matter is, nobody does it with bad intentions. So I think the reality of the situation is, if you can take a scenario like I outlined and just get the guy to take the day off, if it's to the point where the kid is visibly shaken when mom or dad are there barking out instructions, if you can get that guy to stay home once, and someone who he really knows and trusts to tell him, hey, Bob, guess what? Let me explain to you what was different when you weren't there. And it doesn't mean don't be there. It means just relax. So if I can say, hey, Bobby Jr. did great, and he just seemed so much more relaxed. Have a chat with your kid, man. Tell him that, I'm going to lay low when I'm at the games. I just love watching you, but I'll do my best to calm down. You'll see that kid change dramatically. Now, if that doesn't work and there was a gun to my head, then I'd rather see those parents not show up at all. Because, listen, when we were kids, when your parents came to a game, it was more of a treat. It wasn't like the modern-day Jerry Maguires who feel like they're representing their kids, and they're literally, at the baseball games, they unfold their lawn chair and they put it in the first base coach's box until someone tells them to move. It's a very different scenario. Now, John, I do got to ask you this while I got you on the horn. I was starting to allude to Mike, and again, he was great. He left a couple of sports, let's call them meddlesome sports moms and dads off the list. Anything that jumped off the page at you?
I know he didn't mention, I know you have a big thing about it. Cam Newton's dad. Cam Newton's dad was not mentioned.
Cam Newton's dad was
if there's
not.
Something who's going to screw up a kid, about the kid doesn't have a chance to play pro ball yet, and this kid's answering 4 million questions about how his dad got him into college and what college and the payoffs. I mean, there's one. You can look at. I mean, just look at the arrogance. Yeah, you know what? It's funny. In contrast, look at all the stuff that's written about Barry Bonds.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard anything from like Willie Mays talking about steroids? His godfather. I'm not really sure if Barry Bonds' father, Bobby, is alive. I don't
think he is. I believe Bobby Bonds is dead.
Right, I think you're right. But you haven't really heard too much because you know why? It's obvious.
Well, hang on. I'm going to cut you off because you know what? There was a piece done on Barry Bonds earlier in his career, and it might have been right around the time when his father died, and he would actually talk about. Believe it or not, Bobby Bonds was an overbearing sports dad. He said his father would challenge him. If he would hit a home run, he would just say, you know what, you don't hit enough home runs the other way. He literally would just pick on him and pick on him and pick on him. And part of me wonders why when you hear about... Well, not even the way it turned out the way he did. I guess it's just that bond, no pun intended, between father and son. When he hit that home run, he put his hands up. It was the first thing he did. He got teary-eyed about his dad. And you can understand it. But, even at that level, what gets me is, and by the way, John, thanks for the call. It's a pleasure as always to have you on the line. I'm sorry you didn't get to do your Dolphin questions. Maybe next time, but thanks for the call. And Coach Joe, I'll ask you this. It baffles me that even as a kid gets to the professional ranks, forget about the kids who get their college scholarship. They get to the professional ranks and even superstardom. And these parents can still be such a negative impact on these kids. No one has solved this one yet. No one's figured it out. What do you think?
It's tough. I mean, if it's gotten to the point, by the time they get to the professional level, if that parent has been so overbearing and nothing has been done about it, even now that they're professional level, the athlete's saying, hey, mom or dad, enough is enough. You know, I've got my own career to deal with, my own life to live. I appreciate that you got me this far, but let me get on my own. And they continue to be overbearing. It puts a tremendous amount of pressure on that performer.
I mean, I just don't get it. I guess part of these parents being a little, I don't even say a little naive, let's call it a little bit mentally unstable. If they really believe that behavior is what got their kid there, I'm wondering if they think, I have to still be there. I always have to be there. The second I'm not going to be there is when they're going to start to slip. And obviously, it's been proven time and again that nothing could be further from the truth. These pro athletes say it over and over and over again that their success came in spite of their parents' behavior, not because of it. So if you're listening and you wonder, by me being overbearing, am I benefiting my kid? You are absolutely not. And this is becoming my favorite quote. If you really believe that, you better know that your kid hates it when you come to the games. Period. Nothing more to it than that. I mean, if you could get inside the heads of these parents, and while the athletes are still young, you'd imagine their motivation is to make their kid the best athlete they can be. And that is a noble, noble gesture. They're chasing this borderline impossible dream of the full scholarship, and then the virtually impossible dream of the professional contract. These people are psychotic.
You're totally right, Coach Tony, and I think there's a difference between support and being there for your sons and daughters, but there's an awful difference of the constant pressure that gets put on athletes at a young age, and they have enough pressure on them with everyday life today. They don't need more pressure on them from the figures that they count on the most to succeed. They're trying to do the best they can do.
You know, my wife calls herself, and I love it, it's corny and it's hokey, but she calls herself the soft spot. She says, no matter what's happening in your life, I'm the soft spot. As bad as your day is, you come home, you land on your soft spot. Imagine if, and that's what kids want. I mean, let's face it. Imagine if your soft spot became a brick wall, and I just came back from having an 0 for 3 day and not doing very well, and instead of the support, you get here's why. Here's why you stink. Here's what you got to do to get it better. They don't want to hear that. What they need to hear is you're going to have those bad days. Don't beat yourself up over it and just get yourself supported. Now, there were a couple more of these things that were left out, a couple other sports parents that I started taking notes on. And one I have to mention, there's a little gymnast, I don't know if you remember back in the 96 Olympics, named Dominique Moceanu. She was the cutest little thing in the world. What a lot of people don't know is she is one of the reasons we named one of our daughters Dominique. I'll say it now. She did very, very well as part of the Magnificent Seven back in '96. Shortly after that, she came out and announced that her parents were indeed overbearing parents. It got to the point for her where she fired her parents, in essence, and basically wanted emancipation, legal emancipation from her parents, because apparently her parents were not just overbearing, but her dad in particular was, for lack of a better term, holding her money. It was discovered later that he had swindled and just flushed down the toilet an awful lot of money that this little girl was getting in endorsements and as a professional gymnast. And at the time, this girl was, I think, 15, 16 years old, something like that. That's a true crime. And, we still talk about the pro ranks. You still have guys like Dirk Nowitzki from Dallas Mavericks, who just a couple of weeks ago, I had it up on the blog. The blog, by the way, is www.heycoachtony.com. Dirk Nowitzki still will have a phone conversation with his dad after the game. And he could score 50 points. His dad is going to point out the things that he did wrong. And I'm thinking to myself, there are some daddy issues, because I got to tell you, if I am 20-something, 30-something years old, and I'm making millions of bucks a year, and that's the phone call I'm getting, I'm changing my number. I'm not going to call you, Dad. At some point, don't you say, Dad, I'm just not going to call you anymore if you're going to do this. Right. All right? Knock it off. Yes. My God, I am an elite NBA player, and I'm still catching heat from you. That's ridiculous. All right. You know what? Listen, something I want to mention before we go to break, because I got some emails this week as we're starting to spread the word throughout the Connecticut area, that a couple of emails asking me if I visit schools or towns or rec departments to address parent and coaches groups? Well, obviously, I certainly do. Before I started this radio program, I was the director of the Center for Sports Parenting out of the University of Rhode Island, which is part of the Institute for International Sport. They do the World Scholar Athlete Games. It's great. You should always go to internationalsport.org. But before, as the director of the Center for Sports Parenting, I have conducted numerous seminars for parents, coaches, students, officials, you name it. And I've done these pretty much all over the country. So if you are interested in having me come and speak at your school or your town, you can certainly have Coach Tony come and speak. You can email me at heycoachtony@gmail.com. You can email me for rates, for additional information. The workshops cover every and any topic you could imagine, and we can customize these workshops to suit the specific needs of what's going on at your school. Sometimes it's substance abuse. Sometimes it's interaction between parents and coaches, all the stuff we talk on the show. So if in essence you want to kind of kidnap Coach Tony and hold the show at your auditorium at the school, you can certainly do so. So shoot me an email at heycoachtony@gmail.com.
Coach Tony.
Okay, folks, we are back, and we're joined here by Coach Joe Monroe from Wolcott High School. And as I promised, folks, I'm going to touch a little bit on something that hit the news this week, and Coach Joe's going to chime in as he sees fit. But it's time to talk about America's favorite sports role model. As I mentioned earlier, Kobe Bryant has been the focal point of yet another sexual scandal, but this time he didn't rape anybody. This time it wasn't about sex, it was about sexuality. Tuesday night, Bryant went on a rampage and after receiving a technical foul, screamed at the ref and called him a faggot. All this with TV cameras right in his face so that lip readers across this country could bask in Kobe's bigotry. Now, I certainly don't want anybody to think that I support what Kobe Bryant did, but I am wondering if perhaps the league, along with the general media, and you know what? Society in general is maybe going a little too far. For his stupidity, and I truly think that that's all it was, Brian received a $100,000 fine and a solid 2 days of a media tour that would drive most of us nuts, apologizing to every civil rights, gay and lesbian organization in America. Now, here's my point. And do I think Kobe Bryant is a homophobe? No. Do I think he could have used a better word to perhaps express his anger and his frustration? Yes. Do I think the gay rights folks and the media and everyone else took a massive leap off the deep end on this one? Absolutely. As a coach of teenage kids, and specifically teenage boys, I know that the words that somebody uses aren't anywhere near as important or as impactful as how they use them. Let's face it, the word that Kobe Bryant used has several meanings. Yes, it can certainly be a derogatory slur against a homosexual. We know that. Nobody's an idiot here. But in sports, I know I've heard that word plenty of times, and it usually means that somebody is being a sissy, for lack of a better term. And it has nothing to do whatsoever with one's sexuality. Now, Coach, I see you kind of turn a little bit red here. I know you're representing the school. I know you're sweating all over the studio here. So before I take this in a direction that gives you a stroke, let me ask you, have you ever heard a kid use that term?
Yes, I have.
Okay. What did you take that to mean?
Well, I've taken it to mean that it was a poor choice of words. It was taken out of context. And, you know, the idea that boys will be boys or girls will be girls and this is acceptable today, it's not. I think we need to, and our student athletes, they need to use choice of words. They got to know what they're saying. And, you know, sometimes in a fit and a rage, you're going to say something that is inappropriate. And I hope that as our coaches, as educational leaders, we're talking to our kids about, hey, we need to do the right thing, and we need to use better choice of words when we're that upset. You know?
I couldn't agree with you more. I do think that is absolutely true. And let's face it, folks, if you're tuning in today for the first time on this show, you're starting to figure out pretty quick that I ain't no psychologist. And you're not going to hear stuff like this on sports psychology shows. But let me ask, what do you think of this? My take on it is similar to what you just said, that words are just that. They are only words. And I've personally found, and by the way, I don't think that what Kobe Bryant did was acceptable. I think it was unacceptable. Let's make that very, very clear before the phone lines start to light up here. But I've personally found that by earmarking certain words as evil or forbidden or taboo or whatever you decide to label it as, it gives those words more power. And kids are more prone to, well, for lack of a better term, try them out. It's kind of like, and Coach and I were talking during the break, it's kind of like smoking when we were kids. We were told, you just don't do it, it's bad. It's okay for adults, but not for you. And so what did we want to do? We all wanted to try it. There was nothing enjoyable about smoking. It was this adult rite of passage. It was something to be cool. And now when we talk to our kids about smoking, we haven't really said it's taboo. You know, we've got new information about what it does to our bodies. We can show a kid what your lung looks like when you smoke. They have these ridiculously explicit commercials about the guy who has the hole in his throat. And I don't mean to laugh, but it's kind of odd. You see them squeezing out a dead person's aorta and all this crap that's built up over the years from smoking. And I got to tell you, if my kids at this point see somebody smoking, they don't hesitate to express their disgust. And I mean they express it openly and verbally. So I think, you know, it takes a special kind of stupid for a kid to do that now, and I think we treat language the same way. And you know what? I promised my wife I was not going to talk about the dreaded N-word, and so I'm not going to. But I do view it the same way. I think that the only reason I didn't say the word itself is I promised my boss that I wouldn't, and I don't want to get fired. But I just think it sounds so stupid when we're forced to say, quote, the N-word. We sound like a bunch of idiots. I think words have as much power as you give them. I think the real issue here is that Kobe Bryant exploded against a referee. He is a professional. And whatever the words were that he used, what he did was unacceptable. It was after he had gotten a technical, and I don't know about how you feel about it, Coach. I am shocked and actually very disappointed that guy didn't stand up for himself and go back and give him a second tee and toss him out of that game.
I agree, Coach. I agree. And just as you've said, I think we're in a society today that we try to educate our athletes the best way we possibly can and conduct themselves. And it just has to be a better choice of words. He's a role model for kids. He's a role model as we look at him.
Should be a role model. Should be a role model.
And he should know better.
All right, listen, we're going to go back to some of your calls here. In fact, I know we got Mike from Trumbull who is on line one. Hey, Mike, you're on Hey Coach Tony. How you doing this morning?
Hey, Tony, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. So what do you think about all this stuff? We got some interesting topics flying around today.
Oh, I love it. I love the show. I love everything you got going on. I agree with a lot of what you're saying and a lot of coaches saying. I do have to admit, I am an educator and I am a coach myself, teaching in the schools and teaching high school athletics, and also young children as a swim coach and football coach. I do have to make a point about the Kobe Bryant situation.
Go ahead.
The Kobe Bryant thing, I mean, at some point, we're going to have to start understanding we can't expect these people, these professional athletes, to be role models. We would love it. It would be a perfect thing if they were, but we have to stop expecting them to do that. And the reason I say that is because they get paid millions of dollars to do their use their athletic ability on the top, highest stage. But nowhere in their contract does it have, for the most part, character clause or words they can and cannot say. For the most part, these are athletes at the top of their ability level, at the top stage. They're not there to be role models. That's not what they're getting paid for.
You know what, Mike? Yeah. About a year ago, I would have jumped down your throat and attacked you because I am old school, and I think that athletes should, and I've recently changed that word. I used to say must, because when Charles Barkley first came out and said, hey, you be your kid's role model, don't wait for me, I blasted Charles Barkley and hated that attitude. But you know what? And for those of you who are listening, take out your pens and paper. I was wrong. And, Mike, you are right. We can no longer rely, and I think that's the word. We should hope we have role models I hope, the next Cal Ripken Jr. is somewhere waiting to break through so I can point to my kid and say, that's who you want to go be like. Don't follow some deadbeat piece of garbage like Kobe Bryant. That's what the guy is. Sorry. You're right.
Exactly.
We can't rely. We've got to be the role models. But, boy, wouldn't you hope that we would still have a couple of them around, Mike?
Absolutely, I really do. I would really hope that, and you really hope that the coaches of these pro athletes would push these players even more towards that. Now, having said that, the people who you would be shocked to hear that from are your role models, are your teachers, are the people who are teaching these young kids. Then you should be shocked and appalled when these people, because these are the, quote, role models that you do need. And on the flip side, for Kobe Bryant, to kind of give someone like that some, I will give him, not him personally, but a pro athlete, some credit. There might be pro athletes out there who are great with kids, do a lot of charitable things, try to be role models. But sometimes as a pro athlete, when you've worked all your life and you're in the heat of the moment at the top level, and you have a camera in your face 3 hours a day, every day of your professional life for 10 years, and you lose it on the court, and they catch you saying like that, something like that, and everybody makes a big thing of it. Listen, I mean, you caught the person at his most vulnerable time, and it's going to happen. I mean, I think at some point, too, we look at that and we say, well, we caught him there. But, you're going to catch a professional athlete in the heat of their battle.
Hey, but that's hey, Mike, come on now. That's part and parcel. I hate to say it. It's like these people who are dying their whole lives to go be rich and famous, and I can't wait for people to take my picture. And then the first time somebody takes a picture of them, they put their hand up and start complaining. Kobe Bryant, you better know better. You really got to know better. I mean, take a lesson from major league pitchers everywhere. Cover your mouth and scream whatever the hell you like. You idiot. Maybe he deserves the $100,000 fine for being so stupid, but it's not because he's a homophobe. You disagree with that?
Oh no, I don't think he's homophobe. I mean, I'm growing up in sports and college athletics. Those words are passed on. It is a there's two meanings to the word that he said, and you put it exactly right. There is a sort of sissy mentality that comes up with that word. It's the tough part about the word is more of a social thing,
yep,
because of the fact that it is something 100 years ago gay did not mean what gay means now.
Absolutely, and neither did faggot, by the way. Neither did faggot. What? The word faggot meant something very different. My buddy Nick DiPaolo, who is a world-famous comedian, did a show with Louis C.K. and explained what that meant. So these things take on a life of their own. Hey, Mike, listen, I got to let you go. Great call. By the way, you're the Hey Coach Tony Caller of the Week, so you know what? On April 30th, you're going to come and join me in the studio. You think you can handle that?
Oh, Tony, I can definitely handle it. I love it, and I'll see you then.
All right, you're going to shoot me an email and give me your confirmation numbers, I should say your address, and you know what? I think you'll get a Hey Coach Tony coffee mug out of it.
And thank you for what you do for high school athletics. You are certainly a role model for what you do every day for our kids.
Yeah, tell that to my wife. All right, listen, folks.
Thank you very much. Great show, Tony.
Thanks, Mike. I'll talk to you soon. Folks, listen, let's face it. What we do here is important. And, this ain't your grandpa's sports parenting show, that's for certain. And I really do want to wish a special thank you to Mike Berardino, who joined us from the Sun Sentinel with his great thoughts and for putting up with our phone snafus. And more importantly, Coach Joe Monroe from Wolcott High School, the athletic director, for joining me in studio today. It was an absolute treat. Hey, folks, you know what? Another quick hour of my life has gone by. As always, I want to thank you for the emails, for the calls, and for the comments in general. Be sure to tune in this and every Saturday morning at 9 for Hey Coach Tony on ESPN Radio. We'll see you.